Texas, Arizona State, but some of the other ones. Let's talk a little bit about that matchup first, though. TJ, this is the largest spread of any of the games that are happening in the quarterfinals, and Texas looked good, right? That when we saw them play last week, and they get to go to the Peach Bowl. This is one of my favorites in Atlanta. Both of these schools kind of have a little bit of a ways to travel to get to that one. And again, Longhorns favored to win. The Sun Devils are 11-2 against the spread on the season, though. So I don't know. Maybe does that give them a chance?
I think what would have been really good for Arizona State is playing this game immediately after their conference championship. I don't think they're the best. I think Arizona State was the hottest team getting in the playoff. When they were like 7-2, no one thought they had a chance because they had to go play a ranked BYU. They had to go play a ranked Kansas State. They had their rivalry game against Arizona, and they needed a lot of chaos to even get into the Big 12 championship, and they needed to beat two ranked teams that nobody gave them a chance against. Sure. They beat those two teams. They blew out their rival on rivalry weekend after Thanksgiving, and then they went in and destroyed a pretty good Iowa State team that beat Miami yesterday, right?
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Iowa State looks good, yeah.
Arizona State was like really, really hot, and it's just hard for me to think that the layoff didn't impact. And playing Texas is definitely better than all those other teams that we just mentioned. I think Kenny Dillingham would have rather played this game like the week after. That was also Texas coming off of the SEC championship. Yeah. Like you kind of get Texas while they're down, you're hot. Like that's a good situation for them. Instead, this game happens almost a month later, and that's probably not great for Arizona State, added to the fact that Texas is just all around more talented than the Sun Devils are.
Yeah.
Does the rest help? I mean, there are some
ways. That was going to be my question. Like, I can see the argument for, striking while the iron is hot, but I can also see the argument where, time gives you a little bit to rest your team, and see there's plenty of guys who will be playing who could benefit from rest, right? Like, obviously, you're not necessarily getting, somebody back that had a major injury, but all of these players are worn down at this point in the season, and they no longer have Tyson in the lineup, and there is some benefit to allowing your players to let their bodies heal a week longer than Texas got.
I think so. I mean, obviously Texas had to play a game that was never in doubt, but still a tough game against Clemson. Yeah. And maybe had they put that game away a little earlier and not let Texas come back, maybe they could have rested some guys, but they had to play all four quarters. And again, never in doubt. I don't think it was like a play away from them losing.
But it's still a physical game.
Absolutely. Against a really talented team that fought their tails off to come back. And so, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I still think Texas is just probably too much here. However, Quinn has turned the ball over at sometimes. You've got fans in the stands chanting for Arch Manning. Like there are some, I don't think it's, I'm going to pick Texas in this, right? Like I'm going to try and hype myself up to think this could be closer than it is. But I mean, I think there are some paths. I think there are some ways that you could see like, man, if Texas turns the ball, like they kind of played with their food all year. They didn't win incredibly impressively against Mississippi State. They didn't win incredibly impressively in some other games that against competition of teams that had lost 5, 6, 7 games. And so, yeah, I think there's a chance that Arizona State could stick around with this. I think Cam Scadaboo, it kind of comes down to how well he runs the ball. If he goes over 100, 125 yards, I think they're going to be in it, Yeah. That said, do I think that Texas is going to give up that many yards on the ground? Probably not. But he might be the best running back they've seen. I mean, ETN's up there in that category. They haven't played this murderer's row of running back. Like they didn't play against Dylan Sampson or some of the more elite running backs in the conference. South Carolina's Kid Sanders. So I think Scadaboo will be one of the better running backs they've seen this year. And so
this will be the best defensive front that he's seen as well, though, right?
Without a doubt. That's what makes it tough is can he really, because he needs to run between the tackles. I don't think he's going to be able to get to the out, like against the Big 12, some of that competition. He can get to the outside. He can bounce it out and be fat. That, the Texas speed, the idea that you could burn everybody around the edge. I mean, maybe he'll make me a liar. I think he's going to have to run between the tackles. And I think Texas' defensive line is probably built pretty well to handle that.
I mean, one of the best in the country, certainly probably the best that Arizona State has seen. And the flip side too, I really think that both teams' running games are going to kind of determine this one, right? Texas has an incredible running game. They're averaging close to 5 yards per carry, which is just wild, right? And so, will Arizona State be able to stop them at all? And I mean, they almost have to hope exactly what you said, that yours is the wild card for them, right? Is the person that helps them out. He has been on a little bit of a roller coaster. And so, but because he's been on a little bit of a roller coaster, does Texas want to just put the ball in the hands of their running back and kind of eliminate that possibility of mistakes?
I mean, I would run this ball a ton. I will say Arizona State's defense, I think, is a little bit underrated. They held Iowa State down. See if I
Yeah.
can not mix those names up. And I know Miami's defense is absolute trash. But you saw what Iowa State's offense did yesterday in the Pop Tart Bowl, right? Like Iowa State's got a good offense and they got nothing going
Yeah.
against an Arizona State defense that I do think is underrated. I think that they could, if Texas doesn't take care of business, and we've seen Texas get into the red zone and struggle. We've seen Texas
Sure.
not put up. I mean, they didn't put up crazy offensive numbers against A&M. They didn't put up crazy offensive numbers against Mississippi State. They didn't. There were times that Texas was kind of like, well, they were taking care of business. They were winning, but they weren't blowing teams out, right? And
Yeah.
so, can Arizona State's defense play better than Clemson's did, right? I don't think they have the talent, but they've been a better defense overall
Yeah.
this year. And so that, yeah, if I am Texas, I mean, they probably will be able to pass fairly well too, but I am absolutely leaning on the running game because I think
Yeah.
that's where they'll have the most success.
Yeah. Well, yours turned the ball over 5 times in their last 2 games, which, that's pretty, last 2 regular season games. That's pretty wild, right?
Yeah. And that's probably why I lean away from throwing the ball as much.
Yeah.
When they started throwing the ball more against Clemson, they struggled. And then they went back to the running game at the end of the game and put it away. And so, I mean, the formula is there. Now, if Arizona State can stop the run some early, does that force their hand? Probably. And I still like Texas matchups. I mean, their wide receivers are still really good. They still do a very good job. And if Quinn is on, he can be really good. I mean, I know that Florida had some injuries, but you saw it live and in person. They can throw the ball when they need to, and they can do
Yeah.
it really well. And I think that Florida's backups, right, are still really talented. And Texas put on an absolute show, and the game was over at halftime. And so if they can do that against Arizona State, then yeah, this will turn into a laugher. But I don't know. I don't think it's as certain of a loss as maybe some of the first round games have been.
Sure.
But I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like, you're hoping and praying that it's a little more competitive. But if Texas plays a B plus or A game, I think they cover the spread and they win going away. If they're a B minus C plus, then I think it could be pretty close.
What's the spread right now? Is it 13.5?
Yeah, I've seen it anywhere from like 12 and a half, 13. I haven't seen it up to 14, but somewhere in that range.
Okay. And they nobody has the benefit of a night game, that 1 p.m. kick. I'm interested to see what happens crowd wise. We talked a little bit about this in previous weeks, but when you're on the road, what you're hoping to be 4 consecutive games if you're Texas, right? Because this is the quarterfinals. You're hoping to make it to the semis. You're hoping to make it to the finals. Do you travel every week? Do you pick and choose? Do you, if you're a Texas fan, say, I like our chances in this one, so I'm going to sit this one out because I have bigger aspirations of going, in the semifinals or the finals? I'm interested to see what we get crowd wise, not just this game, all games, right? Because you are hoping your team travels 4 weeks in a row, but is it reasonable to expect that the average fanatic is going to travel 4 weeks in a row?
I think the fact that Austin to, not that Arizona is, not that, Phoenix isn't, but I think the fact that Austin to Atlanta is such an easy flight and such an easy trip. Like, you're not having to travel to one of these, like Happy Valley or
Right,
Columbus,
right.
Ohio, or wherever. You were at home last time,
We're at home,
right?
right?
So you didn't have to travel that time. And I do think that since Atlanta is so easy. Now, that said, Phoenix to Atlanta is also incredibly easy, right? It's a little further, but that's not a hard flight, and that's not,
Sure.
and Atlanta's not a hard place to find a hotel
No.
reasonable, you know. And
Right.
so I actually think Arizona State fans, smaller fan base, right? So that's going to play in. Arizona State fans will travel very well
Yeah.
because this is do or die for them. Like
They
they
like a
know they're
party too.
probably, yeah. And so Texas, maybe there's a little bit of that because Texas fans cannot be. I mean, shoot, comment below and if you're a Texas fan and if you're going to the game and what your
Yeah.
thoughts are around this. But I mean, if I'm a Texas fan and I went last time and saw the Clemson game, I don't want to go. Like in my mind, I would be saying, okay, if I can't travel to every single one of them,
Sitting
I
this one
re-
out.
I really want to go see either Ohio State and Oregon versus Texas, which I think will be another phenomenal game. So I might be thinking about sitting it out. That
Yeah.
said, it's such a large fan base. It's such a massive city. You got to think that they've got, I mean, it's a little bit different for us, right? But we have both of our fan bases have huge contingencies in the city
Yeah.
of Atlanta because of how close we
Oh,
are.
yeah.
Atlanta's still a major city in the country, and I would think
Yeah.
there's a
A
good
lot of
number of
Texas
Texas fans that
too.
live there anyway. Um, so I don't know. I think it'll be, I don't know, 60 40,
I feel
50
like all of this
50.
is just a little bit of an experiment this year, right? Like we're not exactly sure how this is gonna plan out. Well, Quentin says, "I've been to the last 3 games, YOLO." Here for that.
That was a TJ from a much earlier time. Like would never be able to get away with that now, but back in the day, that would have been me.
Yep. I fully appreciate it. I'm here for it. Hey guys, we appreciate you so much tuning into a peek inside SEC football. If you enjoyed the content, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any new content heading your way. We are live every Sunday evening and we would love to have you join us.